By 9 a.m., everyone who needed to know. New.Legal had forwarded Adrian's disclosure to the board with 3 paragraphs of throat-clearing. HR added a calendar wall of brief touch-base invites that felt like depositions in polite font. Mara replied with a single period, her version of received. Gloves on. Rog texted a skull and then, proud of you, idiot. Floor 22, learned it via the fastest network in the building. The look on the receptionist's face. Emily read the memo twice. Undercover assessment. Recusal from all decision paths involving Ms. Wells. Budget approvals reassigned to CFO. The language was clean, bulletproof, bloodless. It still managed to shake something loose in her she didn't want to name. HR. Pinged. 10:30 conversation, supportive. She almost wrote back, make it unsupportive, and we'll save time. Instead, she walked in, sat, folded her hands. The HR director smiled the careful smile of a person who has been trained within an inch of her soul. We want to ensure you feel safe and empowered, the director said. I feel employed, Emily said. Let's start there. They asked if she had concerns. She said yes. Gossip, retaliation, advancement optics. They asked if any boundary had been crossed. She said no, and meant it. They asked if she needed time off. She said time off was a luxury they hadn't funded in the sprint. Ms. Wells, the director said finally, softer for what it's worth. Your work has been noticed. I noticed it first, Emily said, and stood. I'd like to get back to it, at 11:15. Adrian convened a staff meeting he didn't let communications script. He stood at the front of a crowded auditorium, no slides, no logo loop. He said his name. He said what he'd done. He said why it was wrong and why he'd done it anyway. He said he'd pay the fines, accept the reprimand, and step off any ladder that leaned toward a conflict. He didn't say Emily's name. He did say, if you signed up to do real work here and not to perform it, I owe you more days like last week and fewer weeks like last year. Someone in the back clapped once. Then the room followed. Not with thunder, but with the staccato of people who'd been waiting for a sentence that sounded like a person. When it ended, Alex found a camera. Courageous transparency. He told a reporter, eyes pure sincerity. But we must ensure policies are applied equally. He did not wink. His voice did it for him. Mara watched the clip, expression granite. He's going to try to make a meal out of this, she told Rog. Then we make him eat his own fork, Rog said, already drafting. At 1 o'clock. Sophia called from a car that hummed like money. I read your confession, she said, as if reviewing a pitch. Self-flagellation plays well for a week. Then people get hungry again. I'm not feeding them, he said. You already did, she said. Silk over wire. Undercover CEO. Divorce. Anonymous staffer. They'll feast. My publicist wants to run a line. We remain supportive of each other's growth. Say whatever you want, he said. Say we're civilized. We are civilized, she said. We are also brands. And brands don't do romance with their employees. Neither do men who respect them, he said. And cut the call before the next sentence could turn into a trap. By mid-afternoon, the story broke wide. Undercover CEO and the staff he protected. Photos of Adrian at the staff meeting ran beside grainy lobby shots from last week. A headline toyed with the word affair and then backed off. But the comments DIDN single quotes T on the war room. Emily closed her laptop long enough to breathe through the spike of heat in her face. Her phone buzzed from unknown numbers. Fake concern, real poison. She silenced it and kept going. Alex arrived at 3:05 like a subpoena. "We'll need to review your comms," he said, holding out his hand for her laptop as if he was security. "No," Emily said, equally polite. "You can put requests through legal." He smiled without teeth. "You sure you want to be difficult, given context?" Adrian's shadow fell across the doorway. "Context," he echoed, voice mild. "Would you like to define it for the room, Alex?" Color touched Alex's neck. "We're ensuring compliance." "Great," Adrian said. "Then comply with the process." He looked to Emily, not through her. "You okay?" "I will be," she said, a sentence that held. "Good," he said, turned back to Alex. "Walk with me." They didn't walk. They stood in the hall while Adrian spoke in a voice that never left low. He didn't threaten, he listed. Policy, procedure, lines of authority. He mentioned the board's audit committee in a way that put weight under each word. Alex left the conversation shorter than he'd entered it. Mara met Adrian by the elevators. "PR wants a soft profile about your humble beginnings," she said, dry. "No," he said. "Good," she said. Also, Wells' team shipped 2 internal UX cycles and a dev envy before lunch. "I moved budget permanently." "She gets air," he nodded. "Thank you. Don't thank me," Mara said. "Fund her," he almost smiled. Done. At 5:40, the floor emptied into an evening still bright with headlines. Emily stayed. Work was the only thing that didn't ask for a statement. The glass reflected her back at herself. Woman, laptop, stubborn. She didn't hear him at first. "I brought a peace offering," Adrian said from the doorway. She turned. In his hand, a stapled packet. Formal recusal and delegation digital initiatives. Signed by him, countersigned by Mara and Rog. Copied to the board and HR. He'd done the thing. Not promised it. Also, he added, holding up a second sheet. "An authorization for a security line you can call if you're followed or harassed. It routes to my chief of security and bypasses the general queue." She took both, read enough to believe. "Thank you. I know I'm sorry won't clear anything," he said. "It clears a little," she said. "Written memos clear more. Then I'll keep writing." "Them," he said. Silence rested without strain. "Will you still walk floors as Blake?" She asked, the name a splinter she hadn't pulled out yet. "No," he said. "If I walk, I'll walk as myself or not at all." "Try the first," she said. "It's harder. It's better," he nodded. She set the papers down. "We're doing a late UX pass on error states. You can sit in the back if you keep your face neutral." "My face is always neutral," he said. "Not true," she said, and, to her own annoyance, felt a smile tug. "But you're getting better." The session began. To support agents clicked through flows, while Emily asked questions that cut, not bleed. Adrian sat against the back wall, invisible as a man like him could be. He didn't talk. He watched. The product stumbled where new things stumble and stood where honest work holds. At the end, the agents thanked Emily for asking instead of telling. She wrote "Ask Gives," then "Decide" on the board, boxed it, underlined twice. When the room emptied, the city had gone purple at the edges. She capped the marker, rubbed a smudge of ink from her thumb. "Tomorrow will be worse," she said. Double quotes, "Yes," he said. "And then it will be better." "Yes," he said again. She nodded toward the papers. Keep doing those faster than the headlines. I will, he said. She gathered her laptop. Good night, Adrian. It was the first time she'd used the name. It landed in him like a stake and a stitch, both good night. Emily, he said. He watched her walk out into a corridor where cameras couldn't see and thought, there are kinds of protection you can buy and kinds you build. He had spent years buying the first. Today, for the first time, he'd added a brick to the second. Outside, stories kept spinning. Inside, the sprint moved. Somewhere far above, paper walls finally stopped rustling and began, imperceptibly, to tear. Tuesday broke mean. The tabloids didn't find proof, so they made weather, CEO sentimental. Staffer safe. Who is Emily Wells? Screenshots of her LinkedIn pulled from a cache she hadn't updated since the divorce. Comment sections did what they do when they taste a woman's name and a man's power in the same. Paragraph. At 8:02 a.m. Security pinged Emily with a polite alert. If you feel surveilled, call the dedicated line. She clicked acknowledge, put her phone face down, and opened the sprint board. The work didn't require good press. It required work by 8:40. Ops flagged a red. A third-party integration, the one Granger's org had championed, was failing in staging. Error logs stacked like a wall. A deadline hissed. Emily called a war room. Engineers flooded in with laptops. The controller dialed in from finance because she knew that outages have a way of turning into spend. Who owns this vendor contract? Emily asked, eyes on the screen. Granger, someone said. He pushed it through last quarter. Of course he did, Emily muttered, then louder. Okay, we isolate. If the partner's down, we reduce blast radius and keep our flows. 20 minutes later, Granger strolled in, cologne first. Good morning, team, he sang, surveying the monitors. Ah, so the Wells plan meets reality. We're experiencing an upstream failure, Emily said evenly. And we're mitigating. He raised his brows. Are we, or are we discovering that not all optimism ships? An engineer turned his chair. It's not optimism. Their API is choking at our auth handshake. Then fix it, Granger said to the room at large. Not noticing or not caring that fixing a vendor's code isn't how vendors work. Already doing everything we can on our side, Emily said. I've asked their encore to join. Granger's smile cooled. In the meantime, I'll inform the executive team that digital initiatives is blocked. Say we're adapting, Emily said. Blocked is lazy. He tilted his head. Careful. A lot of us are tired of your tone. It's the only free resource we have, she said, and turned back to the screen. He left too easily. 10:10. Rog pinged Adrian, heads up. Anonymous packet dropped in legal. Slack screenshots implying you and Wells were deeming late night for weeks. Timestamped to last Friday's quesadilla night. Adrian felt the familiar, cold arrive in his chest, the one that used to help him in fights, and now merely made his hands steady. Forensic, he typed, on it. Looks fabricated timestamp anomalies, UI mismatches. But it will slime if it leaks. Source. VPND, but the screenshots reference an internal codename only Granger's org uses. I'm not saying it's him. I'm saying it smells like him. Adrian's jaw worked once. Keep containment. I'll handle the floor. He took the elevator to 22 and stepped into heat. Fans worry, monitors bright, voices low. Emily stood at the head of the table, hair yanked into a knot that said "not for you," posture squared, status. Adrian asked, not bothering with preface. She gave it to him in 3 sentences. Vendor, choke. Mitigation plan, ETA to green. Then, because she'd learned speed, she added, "We can decouple this integration for internal users and ship the rest. It's ugly. It's usable. Do it," he said. Granger reappeared, as if summoned by the scent of authority. "Adrian," he said, savoring the name like a dessert he didn't pay for. "I was just about to brief you." "You weren't," Adrian said pleasantly. "Wells is briefing me." Granger's eyes flicked between them, calculation alive and petty. "We're all on the same team," he said to the room. Broadcast tone on. "Then stop saying blocked to people who aren't," Emily said. Granger exhaled a chuckle. "Speaking of blocks, legal might have questions for you, Emily," he said, voice dipped in concern. "About communications policy. Off-hours DM." He let it trail. A ripple stirred, ugly and human. Heads bent deeper over keyboards. Adrian went still. "Alex," he said, voice low, "walk with me." They stepped into the hall. Adrian didn't raise his volume. He didn't need to. "If anything fabricated touches my employee, I will treat it as an attack on the company," he said. "And the audit committee will treat it as cause." Granger's pupils pinned. "You're accusing me?" "I'm telling you, your name will be the first one we check." Granger's smile came back, thin and bright. "Careful, Adrian. A CEO in a divorce threatening a VP over a staffer. Optics." Adrian held the stare a second longer than polite. "Compliance," he said. "Be near your phone when legal calls." He went back in. Granger didn't follow. At 11:03, the vendor's on-call finally joined, 2 minutes late and 4 levels unhelpful. Emily translated their stall into tasks her team could actually perform, rerouted a flow, stubbed a response. Got staging to stop screaming. "Green enough," she said at 11:28. "We ship internal." Adrian watched the room exhale. Work makes a sound when it lands. He'd missed that sound. "Lunch," he said quietly to Emily, as the room dispersed. "My calendar says I'm allowed to provide fuel." She almost smiled. "Your calendar can bring coffee. I'm staying glued to this chair until the vendor respects gravity." "Coffee, then," he said, and left before the moment could turn into something that required more words than either of them could spare. By 1:30, legal had a preliminary. The DM screenshots were fakes. Wrong font rendering, a subtle misorder of reactions, a slack UI element that hadn't existed since last year. Forensics traced the upload to a home ISP registered to a Granger Holdings LLC, but the trail split through a VPN farm after that. Not proof. A map with an arrow. Rog sent Adrian the summary. "We can't accuse yet, but we can freeze Alex out of anything sensitive while we keep digging." "Do it," Adrian wrote, "and prep HR for a retaliation complaint if we nail him. He'll try to flip the script." "Already drafting." Adrian forwarded the forensics note to Mara. She replied in 5 words, "I'll take his budget today." He grinned, small and sharp. "Leave him his chair. It's useful when we pull it at 3:05. The vendor rolled a silent fix and declared victory in a ticket comment like they'd lifted a car off a child. The logs went quiet. Emily didn't celebrate. She wrote a retro doc in the same breath. What broke, what caught, what to replace. Adrian brought coffee. She took it without looking, sipped, and finally said, "Thank you." "For what?" "For not making the outage about your meeting count." "I have other numbers to count," he said. She set the cup down, fingers around the heat. "Someone's trying to make it about me," she said. "Not a question." "Yes," he said. "And I'm handling it." Her eyes met his. Hurt lived there, and discipline, and a mule's refusal to cry in front of anyone who would enjoy it. Handle it without burning the building down. Only his office, he said lightly. Her mouth did that almost smile that wasn't for cameras. "I have a retro at 4. You can sit if you like being told things went wrong." "I love being told things went wrong," he said. "It's the only way they go right." At 4 o'clock, she ran the retro like an engineer and a therapist had co-parented her. "Facts first," she said. "Feelings after." Fixes always. People spoke. People listened. No one performed. When it ended, the room emptied until it was just the two of them and a whiteboard that refused to lie. He stayed leaning on the back wall because distance felt like respect. "I should have told you sooner," he said. "Not the undercover, not the divorce this I know," she said. "And you did, today." The silence that followed wasn't heavy. It was workmanlike, like they were both laying bricks the right way around a thing that could stand. Her phone buzzed. She glanced, grimaced. "Tabloid wants comment, or we print rumor. I guess that's a professional courtesy." "Forward to legal," he said. She did, then slid the phone into a drawer like it might contaminate the air. "I'm taking the subway home," she said. "If a camera follows me, I'll use the number." "Good," he said. "And Emily," she waited. "I'm proud of the work," he said. Not as a line. As a fact, she nodded once, the smallest acceptance, and left. At 6:12, Rog called. "We've got enough to open an internal inquiry on Granger without tipping him." "You sure?" "Yes," Adrian said. "Quiet and thorough." "And your house?" Rog asked, meaning the other kind. "Filed." "Sophia will aim PR," he said. "I'll aim policy. She'll throw confetti." "You'll throw statutes," Rog said. "I like the odds." Adrian hung up and looked out at a city pretending to be 1,000 separate stories. He had spent a career buying protection and a week learning how to build it. Tomorrow, he would move Granger's budget to the teams that didn't flinch. He would sign 3 more memos and ignore 3 more headlines. He would keep his distance and his word, and maybe if the work held and the lies didn't, he would ask Emily what she wanted that didn't fit in a sprint. Not now. Not yet. For now, it was enough to choose the next right thing and do it where people could see. Wednesday came, dressed as consequence. At 7:30 a.m., Rog texted. Inquiry opened. Narrow scope. No leaks. Mara followed. Budget shift signed. Digital gets air. Granger's discretionary frozen. Adrian answered both with a single word. Proceed. He poured coffee at the Midtown rental and read the morning's media diet. Sophia's publicist had landed a profile. Sterling grace under pressure. The piece had photos of her in a cream suit, gazing out a window like she'd invented sunrise. The quotes were frictionless. We wish each other the best. Growth is not always a straight line. It was not an attack. It was a brand inoculation. She had always been good at that. He put the phone face down and laced his shoes. He had a different inoculation to round up by 9. The auditorium lights were warm and the room full. He kept this one short. We learned a lot last week. He said from the stage, no slides. We're moving budget to teams that shipped progress under constraint. We're sunsetting a few vendor relationships that don't meet the bar. If you made hard things simple, you'll feel it. A brief beat. If you made simple things hard, you'll feel it, too. A row of VPs shifted like a wind had found their section. He didn't say Granger's name. He didn't need to. Everyone knew where the draft had come from. Questions? He asked. A hand from the back, a support lead with a voice that had processed 1,000 angry customers. Does moving budget come with more humans, or just bigger numbers? Humans, he said. Careers are built with them. There was a murmur that wasn't unrest. It was relief disguised as skepticism. He ended with a sentence that fit only because he meant it. If you do work here, not perform it, you will like this era. The room clapped like it believed him enough to try. On 22, Emily had slept 3 and functioned on will. The vendor integration held. The sprint plan had regained its heartbeat. HR asked for a brief process review. Legal asked for a quick chain of custody check. PR asked for nothing because she wasn't a spokesperson. But the requests still arrived, cloaked as courtesy. She triaged them, then opened her calendar to find a 10:30 with Mara Chen. Conference 1 to B was windowless and blessedly empty. Mara entered with her tablet and the look of a woman who had decided, long ago, to be exactly as soft as the problem required. Wells, Mara said by way of greeting. Sit, Emily sat, waiting for the shoe that HR had failed to drop. I'm reallocating budget, Mara said. You get to head count, 1 senior engineer, 1 Q, a plus, an operating cushion. You earned it last week. I'm not pretending this is a favor. Emily exhaled slowly. Thank you. Don't thank me. Spend it on uptime. Emily nodded. I will. Mara studied her for a beat. You're handling the noise. I'm handling the work, Emily said. The noise can chew itself. Good, Mara said, almost smiling. 2 things. 1. If anyone weaponizes process to slow you down because they can't punish you publicly, tell me first. 2. I'm moving Granger's reporting line. He won't touch your dependencies again. Emily blinked. She wasn't a revenge person, but fairness had a body temperature you could recognize. Copy, Mara rose. I like results, she said. Keep producing them. I plan to. Mara almost reached the door, then turned back. You asked for permission to tell the truth in a room full of people who wanted permission to decorate it. I noticed she left before Emily could decide what to do with that sentence. At 11:45, Adrian walked floors with his name on his badge. No more Blake. He let people double take, then settle. He asked fewer questions and better ones. What slowed you that we can remove? What did you fix that I haven't seen? Most answers were small. That was the point. Empires die of paper cuts too. He rounded a corner and nearly collided with Granger, who weaponized surprise like a handshake. Adrian, Granger said, the vow a blade. Heard you were starring in the Transparency Tour. Budget Tour, Adrian corrected. Ah, Granger's smile had recovered some wattage. So we're picking winners. We're funding execution, Adrian said. If you want to be a winner, execute. Granger leaned in a hair, confiding and venomous at once. Be careful with your staff crushes. They're expensive. Adrian didn't blink. Be careful with your fabrications. Their fatal color rose. Then the smile again. We'll see whose story tests better. We will, Adrian said, and moved on. He didn't look back. He didn't need to. He knew how men like Granger went down, not with a grand speech or a single blow, but with a sequence of processes doing what they're meant to when someone finally lets them at 1:10. A message hit Emily's personal phone from an unknown number with a local area code. "We can help you, tell your side." It was followed by a photo her leaving the building the night of the quesadilla, head down, bag across her chest. The image was boring, which meant it would sell. She texted the security line. The reply came in seconds. "We'll monitor. Don't engage." If followed, turn left on 49th. "We'll meet you inside." She put the phone in the drawer again. The drawer was getting crowded with things she refused to carry. At 2 o'clock. She ran a planning session that felt like control in a week without much. She assigned tickets, watched shoulders drop as ownership found its place. She wrote, "Build boring things beautifully" on the glass and left it there at 3:20. A note from legal landed in Adrian's inbox. "We have enough for a formal interview with Granger. Tomorrow at 9. HR present. Want to observe?" "No," he wrote. "Keep it clean. I'll read the transcript." He forwarded the schedule to Mara with a single line. He'll flail. Freeze any discretionary comes he tries to send today. Her reply arrived in 13 seconds. Already did at 4:50. He stepped into the war room doorway. Emily was rewriting a spec with the calm of someone who had had plenty of practice choosing the next right sentence. She looked up like she'd felt him. "Got you something," he said, holding out a card. She took it, wary. It wasn't flowers. It was a laminated badge with a stripe she hadn't seen before. Secure ingress level 2. Her name, correct and clear. "You don't need security to walk." "Floors," she said. "You do to avoid cameras at shift change," he said. "Use it when you want. Or never." She turned it in her hand. "I'll use it when the story tries to make me a story." "Good," he said. "Also morass funding you." "You know already," she said. "I asked for it," he said, and let the sentence stay bare. She studied him as if the room light had changed. "Why didn't you put your name on it?" "Because you're the one building the thing," he said. "Names matter less when the work is visible." A small, unwilling warmth moved through her. "You're learning. Late," he said. "Late is still," she said, and didn't finish the sentence because finishing it would have invited a kind of mercy she wasn't ready to spend. He touched the frame of the glass wall with 2 fingers like a superstitious athlete touches a banner. "I'll get out of your way." "Stay," she said, then added practical. "We're walking air estates again at 5. You can sit still and count how many times I say again. Deal?" They did the work. She said again 6 times. At 6:30, the building thinned to echoes. Outside, the city had put on its evening. Emily packed her laptop and badge. "I'm taking the long way," she said. "Less of a parade. I'll have security shadow at a distance," he said. At her look, he added, unmarked, 2 turns behind. "I'm not a dignitary," she said. "No," he said. "You're a person I'm responsible for not harming." She held his gaze for a full second. "Then don't." Something like pain crossed his face and left. "I'm trying," she nodded once. "Good night, Adrian." He watched her go. A dark silhouette with a laminated future in hand. At 8:05. Rog called with a live update. Granger's lawyer just emailed a demand for records preservation and used the phrase, hostile work environment 4 times, he said, amused. He's going to push the retaliation angle if we move him. Let him, Adrian said. We'll move him because we have cause. We'll document until the paper weighs more than his story. And Sophia? Rog asked, because someone had to. She do what she does, Adrian said. I'll do mine. He hung up and stood a long time at the window. The mural on the brick wall had gained a new line. Someone had come back and painted in the missing door. He thought about the difference between a mask and a boundary. One hides you, the other keeps you whole. He had lived most of his adult life confusing the two. Today, he'd left the mask on the stage and drawn the boundary in ink. Tomorrow, there would be interviews and memos and headlines that didn't care he was trying to be good. There would be a VP who thought he could turn rot into narrative. There would be a woman who refused to be alibi or antagonist when all she wanted was to ship something that worked. He picked up a pen and wrote 3 lines on a yellow pad. Fund the work where it lives. Pull power out of performance. Keep distance. Keep truth. He tore the page off and taped it to the cabinet like a contract no one else needed to sign. Then he turned off the light and let the city glow for them both. The man who had finally said his name out loud, and the woman who did her work where everyone could see. By 8:55 a.m., the conference room outside HR looked like a quiet crime scene. A metal carafe sweating on a tray, a legal pad aligned to a pen, the blinds at half-mast. At 9:01, Alex Granger walked in with a lawyer whose suit was more expensive than his judgment. Adrian did not attend. He'd promised he wouldn't. He read the calendar block like a man reading his own pulse and went to floor 22. Instead, morning, Emily said, already triaging a column of red. She wore the navy blazer, again the one that looked like resilience, bought on consignment. Her hair was up, practical and vendors stable. Were pushing aerostate polish, then internal pilot Friday. Good, he said. And your HR follow-ups? Done, she said. They were. Humane, for HR, a beat. Still HR. He almost smiled. If anyone escalates through process to get to you, go through Mara first. I plan to, she said, and bent back to the board. He stayed for the stand-up and didn't speak once. Watching work land had become a kind of penance he could live with. When it finished, he nodded to her and left before his presence could turn the room into a theater. HRS recorder clicked on at 9 o'clock. Sharp, Mr. Granger, the director said. This is an internal fact-finding interview regarding potential fabrication of internal communications, alleged interference with project execution, and use of non-compliant channels. Your counsel is present. You are an at-will employee. Do you understand? Granger's lawyer answered for him. We're here under protest. This is retaliation. The director didn't blink. Noted, let's begin. They walked him through timestamps, metadata, and a Slack UI element that hadn't existed since the previous summer. They showed him a V trail that detoured through a farm and somehow still waved at an ISP account registered to a Granger Holdings LLC. They asked him to explain a calendar invite he'd sent to a contractor with the subject line, mock options. It's marketing collateral. Granger's lawyer said smoothly. We mocked up scenarios for messaging. Entirely normal. Do your scenarios usually include forging employee DM? Rog asked from the back, voice neutral like a scalpel. Counsel instructs the witness not to answer, the lawyer said. Not great optics. Alex, the HR director said. Without looking up, Granger smiled. Too many teeth. I know a thing or two about optics. Actually, I'm sure you do, Rog murmured. The recorder kept clicking. By 10:32, HR had enough to move him to leave without duties pending formal review. They slid the paper across the table. The lawyer read, huffed, threatened, folded. Granger signed with a flourish he thought looked like control. He stepped into the hall and found Mara waiting. Tablet in one hand, patience in none. Badge, she said. He hesitated half a second too long. Security appeared like choreography. Granger surrendered plastic with the air of a man giving up a throne and kept the smile on as if photographers were hiding. In the ceiling tiles. Appeal, he said. Process, Mara said. Go home, he went, slower than he needed to. At 11 o'clock, a new storm angle broke on 3 sites at once. Sterling sources, impropriety clause could cost Blackwood millions. The piece didn't say Emily's name. It didn't have to. It danced around the idea that a morals clause tied to relationships with subordinates might trigger a penalty in the prenup. The numbers were invented. The appetite was not. Adrian's phone vibrated with an unknown number he recognized from a decade of avoiding traps. Adrian, Sophia said, smooth as an elevator. Saw your budget town hall. Stark, clean, almost moved me. What do you want, Sophia? Control, she said, lightly. What we've always wanted. Your PR team can deny. Mine will stay elegant. But consider this friendly advice. Step down for a quarter. Let the dust settle. We both preserve value. No, he said. You're being emotional, she said. It doesn't suit you. And you're doing what you always do, he said. Polishing gravity, she sighed, a sound engineered for microphones. Have it your way. I'll keep my quotes graceful. You keep your floors clean. We both walk away shiny. He hung up, pulse steady in a way that surprised him. The marriage had run on suggestion and optics and the threat of being embarrassed. None of those things moved him anymore. He texted Rog. Sophia's camp seeded a clause story. Ignore, we don't dignify hypotheticals. Rog, copy. Focus is Granger and guardrails, Mara, already frozen his residual approvals. He's air-gapped by lunch. Adrian, thank you, Mara. Don't thank me. Fund the team at noon. Emily's ex-husband called. She let it ring out, then listened to the voicemail while standing in a hallway no one used. Long time. I saw the news. I'm worried. If you need help with anything, you can crash at my place for a bit until this blows over. He hadn't offered that when the lease was in her name and the bank account wasn't. The last line was worse. You always wanted a man who'd fight for you. Maybe this is the lesson. She deleted it before the bile could finish its work. Back in the war room, she checked the sprint reallocated to tickets and told herself she wouldn't cry in a building she earned the right to enter. Work wasn't therapy, but it made a better religion than resentment. Adrian stopped by with nothing in his hands. You look like you could throw a box of staples through a window, he said quietly. I could, she said. But facilities would file a report. He waited. My ex called, she said, aiming for deadpan and hitting weary. Offered me a couch. Like charity, his face moved in a way it rarely did. Do you want me to make that phone number stop working? No, she said, because power used that way turns into something you can't return. I want to ship on Friday. Then let's ship on Friday, he said. She nodded, grateful for a sentence that didn't try to fix the wrong thing. At 1:30, legal posted a formal notice, interim Lever Granger investigation pending. The language was starched. The effect was not. The floor went hum quiet, the way officers do when justice tries on a jacket and it fits by 2 o'clock. Granger's allies had already started rewriting their memories. I always thought that vendor was shaky, someone said to a friend, who nodded like belief had been cheaper yesterday at 3:10. PR floated a draft statement to Adrian about values and transparency. He redlined it twice and sent back a single paragraph. We don't do op-eds about integrity. We show receipts. Then he attached the recusal memo, the budget reallocation notice, and a procurement policy update he'd rushed for this exact moment. Any vendor used as leverage in an internal power play would be disqualified for a year. Rog sent a thumbs up that somehow managed to be sarcastic at 4 o'clock. Emily ran a quiet dry run of the internal pilot. It didn't sing, it didn't crash, it moved. She took notes in the cheap notebook, boxed fix password, reset copy, underlined error code, clarity, circled performance on mobile. She didn't narrate victory. She stacked work. Friday's going to land, she said to the room that remained. Not pretty, true. Adrian stood in the back and let that sentence settle into him like a new rule. Any blockers? Emily asked. A junior engineer raised a hand, voice shaking a little. Just thanks for not letting today turn into something else. It was always going to try, Emily said. We outworked it by 5%. That's the job. The engineer smiled with all her teeth and went back to her terminal. At 5:20, security pinged Emily. 2 paps near the 8th Ave exit. Use the badge door. We'll flank. Unmarked car 2 blocks east if you want it. No pressure, she typed back. Walking? Please shadow at a distance. She packed her bag and turned to find Adrian in the doorway. Hands in his pockets like he'd learned the difference between presence and rescue. Going home, she said. I figured, he said. Security will follow at 2 turns. I know, she said. She lifted the laminated badge he'd given her. This helped today. Good, he said. You shouldn't have to need it. She studied him. You're doing the work, she said, not the performance of it. Late, he said again. Still, she said, and left. He watched her disappear into a corridor of ordinary carpet and ordinary light. Then he did something that surprised even him. He went back upstairs, opened a shared doc labeled Digital Pilot Friday Exec Brief, and removed his initials from the reviewers list. Let the work speak, he thought. Let it land without my shadow. At 7:05, Rog called with a kind of update that tastes like air. Got it, he said. A contractor rolled showed us emails. Granger asked him to concept a narrative and attach those fake DMIs as direction. He used his personal LLC to pay. We've got the invoice. Adrian closed his eyes. Next steps. HR will move to terminate for cause tomorrow, Rog said. We'll have a neat packet. Expect a counter-story about persecution. We'll answer with policy and a procurement reform. No adjectives. Perfect, Adrian said. And thank the contractor. Quietly, and put him on a list of people who don't get crushed when we fix their boss's mess. Already done, Rog said. After the call, Adrian wrote 3 emails. 1 to HR. Proceed. Clean and complete. 1 to Mara. Budget stays moved. And 1 to Emily, which he did not send twice before he sent it once. Asterisk. Will remove the vendor you flagged after the pilot. You were right to decouple. Keep going. Ihei watched the little paper plane fly and felt, for the first time in weeks, like action and consequence were touching in the right order. Outside, the city turned its lights on like courage. Inside, the company felt if not virtuous, at least aligned. Tomorrow would be ugly again. Headlines would flare, and a fired man would hand his story to anyone willing to sell it. Sophia would put a bow on an exit she'd planned the day she'd picked the ring. HR would ask for more meetings than anyone deserved. And if the world insisted on a story with a villain and a saint, Adrian would keep answering with receipts and a product that shipped. He put on his coat and took the long hallway to the elevator, the one that didn't face the lobby cameras, and let himself imagine Friday. 4:59 p.m., Emily in that navy blazer, tired and alive, saying we landed it like a prayer that had learned to be true. For now, that was enough hope to spend. Thursday opened like a courtroom at 8:45 a.m. HR assembled the packet, forensics, invoices, the contractor's email chain, a tidy page of policy citations. At 9:02, they sat Alex Granger down with his lawyer and read the line that ends careers without raising a voice. Termination for cause. Effective immediately. Retaliation, the lawyer said, rehearsed. Evidence, Rog said. Calm. Granger's smile trembled, then hardened into something brittle. You think you can erase me? No, Mara said, tablet under her arm, patience at absolute zero. We're documenting you. He signed the receipt copy with a flourish meant for a camera and handed over his badge. Security escorted him to the elevators with all the ceremony of a Tuesday. On the way out, he tilted his head toward the lobby press and gave them a half smile like a promise. Brace. Rog texted Adrian at 9:31. He'll go loud, we'll go quiet, Adrian replied. Policy first. Nothing extra. On floor 22, Emily ran stand-up with a pen behind her ear and a timer on the table. Pilot checklist, she said. Auth sessions, error states, copy. No heroics. We land what we can test. The team nodded like a unit that had fought and decided to fight again. An engineer flagged a last-minute hiccup password. Reset regression on older Android builds. Scope it. Emily said, if the fix is under 2 hours, take it. If not, we document and put a warning on the flow. Feels ugly, the engineer said. Ugly. That works is better than pretty that lies, Emily said. Writing it on the glass because maybe the wall needed to learn it to dot at 10:05. The first flare hit Twitter. VP alleges toxic culture at Blackwood fired for asking questions. He'd beaten them to his own story. An anonymous Medium post followed, long on adjectives and short on times. It never said Emily's name. It didn't have to pour PR, pinged Adrian. We can respond with values, language. Adrian, no slogans. Publish policy updates, procurement reform, and the leave notice already filed. Add times. That's it, at 10:22. The company blog posted 3 PDFs and a single paragraph. We updated our procurement process, removed a vendor from eligibility, and terminated an executive for policy violations following an internal inquiry. We're building systems, not narratives. It was the least clickable thing on the internet. It did the job. Emily didn't read it. She was watching a QA run on a cracked test phone that looked older than some interns. When the reset flow hung, she nodded once. "We're not taking it," she said. "Warning, it is Android 9 and below get a redirect. You sure?" The car lead asked. "I'm sure I like sleep tonight," she said. "We do the fix Monday when we can test it." Adrian stood in the doorway, not intruding, feeling the strange relief of watching a leader choose scope like she believed time was real. At noon, Rog called. "Granger's going to file with the NLRB and pitch 3 outlets. We'll meet him with documents." "Don't take interviews." "I won't," Adrian said. "Let the receipts pile up." "And Sophia?" "Quiet for now," he said. "She's banking elegance. She always does." "Okay," Rog said. "Enjoy your pilot." "I will," Adrian said, surprising himself with how much he meant it. By 2, the war room smelled like coffee and resolve. The checklist had more green than yellow. A junior engineer taped a paper sign above the monitor. "Pilot Eve, we believe in boring." It made people laugh. It made them breathe. Emily took a breath too, then turned to the team. "All right. 4 p.m. freeze. No cute ideas after that. If you get a great thought at 4:01, write it down and fall in love with it tomorrow. Deal?" "Deal," the room said, in the tone of a promise they wanted to keep. Adrian slid a wrapped protein bar onto the corner of her desk, like a man learning gifts that don't require a florist. She arched an eyebrow. He shrugged. "Fuel," he said. "Will it improve aerostates?" She asked. "Only my blood sugar," he said. "Fine," she said, tearing the wrapper with her teeth. Approved. At 3:08, security pinged. 2 photographers waiting outside the 49th Street badge door. "We'll clear them." "Use 8th," Emily typed back. Copy. She didn't need the badge tonight. She needed the pilot to ship. At 3:30, a Slack channel for Pilot Watch opened. People from support and sales joined with cautious emotion. Emily posted the plan in 5 sentences, each a verb. Adrian read it and didn't add his initial dot. At 3:59, she stood, looked at the team like she had something ceremonial to say, and didn't. "Freeze," she said simply, and clicked a key. Silence has a sound when you mean it. At 4 o'clock, they pushed. The first minutes were boring in the way miracles are. Logs rolled. Pages loaded. Error states displayed the exact words they'd written, not the ones they were afraid of. A support agent in Pilot Watch wrote, "Customer in Boise reset password and didn't swear once." The room laughed like they'd been given a flag to plant. .at for 19. An edge case, bit session, expiration not clearing on back navigation. It didn't crash. "It annoyed bug," Emily said. "Not a blocker. Log it. Warn it. We'll sand it Monday." "Copy," the dev said. "Already filing." At 4:52, the QA lead announced, "Mobile clean on our test set. Desktop nominal." Boise continues not to swear. At 4:59, Emily exhaled, then looked at her cheap notebook and wrote, in regular, unheroic pen, "Pilot landed. Friday, internal. No cheers, no balloons." A quiet war room, a team that had fought and won by 5%. It felt like truth. She looked up and found Adrian watching her with a face he hadn't learned for cameras. Pride unperformed. "You did it," he said softly. "We did it," she corrected, then allowed herself a small, human smile. "You can clap now if you must." He didn't clap. He nodded, once, like a man filing a report he wanted to be real at 5:12. Sophia's camp posted something so gracious it burned, a sepia-toned photo. A caption about respecting each other's journeys, a tag that caught the algorithm's light. The comments were kind to her and surgical to him. Adrian put the phone face down and let it vibrate out of sight. At 5:20 PR sent him 3 interview requests. He declined all 3 with one sentence. We shipped something that works at 5:40. The team dispersed in 2s and 3s, the kind of tired that doesn't argue with sleep. Emily stayed to wipe the glass like she always did, erasing the week so the next one could begin. You should go, Adrian said from the doorway. Take the badge door. Security will run a screen. I'll walk, she said. It's my city too. He hesitated. Then walk with a shadow to turns back. She gave him a look that could calibrate a compass. Fine. He didn't follow her. He stood in the empty war room and read the ghost imprints of her writing on the glass. The faint squeak lines that remained even after the ink was gone. Evidence that work had happened even when you cleaned it up afterward. Mara appeared like a verdict. We're turning Granger's termination into a footnote, she said, not asking. Procurement policy update goes top of blog. Budget remains where you pointed it. HR will need you to sign 6 forms you don't have time for. I'll sign, he said. And I want to convert to contractors on 22 to FTE by month end. Done, she said. Wells? She landed it, he said. Mara's mouth flicked. She always was going to. She needs a manager who won't slow her down, he said. She has one, Mara said. Me, he almost smiled. Good. At 7:10, Emily's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Strong pilot. Want to tell your story. She deleted it, then texted the security line to Paps on 8th, walking east. I'm fine, a reply. Saw you. 2 turns back. She tucked the phone in her pocket and let the city swallow her. Storefront light, street heat, a saxophone in the distance playing something that sounded like certainty. At 7:26, a message arrived from Adrian. You led well today. I'm moving headcount to your team. No strings, just work. She typed, erased, typed again, thank you. We'll spend it on uptime, a dot pulsed, then, that's the best line I've read all week. She stared at the screen for a second, then put the phone away because she liked herself better when she wasn't narrating. At 9 o'clock, in the Midtown rental, Adrian stood in front of the half-painted door on the brick wall and felt absurdly superstitious. Cut over, he said out loud, like a talisman. The company had moved from pretend to proof. He had moved a little too. He opened his laptop, signed HR stack, and wrote one more memo he didn't have to write, on boring wins. It was 4 sentences long. Addressed to no one and everyone, we are not a speech. We're a sequence. We don't promise we stage, test, fix, ship. Boring is beautiful when it works. He saved it in a folder he hadn't named, yet and closed the lid. Tomorrow would bring appeals and reversals and 3 more. Think pieces about the fall of men like him. The city would continue to be loud and indifferent. Emily would open her cheap notebook and write a fresh list. He would keep his distance and his word. For tonight, the thing that needed to work worked. The rest could wait. He texted Rog. Pilot landed. Start the weekend by not reading Medium. Rog. Impossible. But proud of you, idiot. Adrian smiled into the dark. Paper walls had finally stopped rustling. Now there were real ones, boundaries drawn in ink, and a door someone had bothered to paint. He thought again, and let the word be a blessing. Friday ran on receipts at 9 a.m. HR posted the line that ends the argument. Termination for causa. Granger with Times policy sites and the procurement reform linked beneath it. No adjectives. No spin. In Slack, the reactions were a muted chorus: no party. Just relief you don't jinx. By 9:40, Granger's toxic culture post tried to swell again. Legal replied with 3 PDFs and a date. It shrank at 10:10. Support reported the pilot had survived a morning surge without profanity. Emily added mobile perf to Monday's list, boxed it twice, and pushed the form back to QA. The team had learned how to breathe with problems instead of hyperventilating. At them, Adrian walked floors with his real name on his badge. Blockers was all he asked. Most answers were small. That was how you knew the big things had moved. On 22, he paused at the war room glass. Emily was mid-stand-up, pen behind her ear, eyes on the work, not the man in the doorway. After, he caught her in the hall. Headcount, requisitions approved, he said. Offer letters go out Monday. Thank you, she said, and the words sounded like oxygen, not tribute. He hesitated. There's a hearing at noon, he added. Divorce stipulation? No speeches. I'll be back by 2. She nodded once, neither intrusive nor indifferent. Good luck, she said, meaning clean lines matter at 12:03. A judge read the stipulation like instructions. Prenup enforced. No impropriety clause triggered because there had been no impropriety. No alimony. Division as agreed. Sophia arrived with a smile perfect for court lighting, a cream dress, and a publicist waiting outside. We did this well, she murmured to Adrian as they waited for signatures. We did it clean, he said. Clean is a kind of beauty, she said. And for a heartbeat he remembered why he had respected her competence with edges. Good luck, Adrian. You too, he said, and meant it in the way you wish a former partner exactly enough. When he stepped onto the sidewalk, flashbulbs looked for a narrative and found paperwork. He didn't answer questions. He texted Rog, done, keep the statement to 1 line. Then he walked 2 blocks without security because sometimes you have to put your feet on your own choices. Back at the office, Mara intercepted him with the look of a CFO who appreciates order as a love language. Budget holds, she said. Pilot promoted to Phase 2 Monday. And I offered Wells the requisitions personally. Good, he said. She said she'd spend it on uptime, Mara added. Something like pride sneaking into her voice. She keeps her promises, he said. Mara tilted her head. So do you when you write them down. He laughed once, working on the first part without needing the second. At 3 o'clock, Emily ran a retro that felt like a landing. Facts, feelings, fixes, she said. The team listed what bent and what held. An engineer admitted she'd been afraid the outage would become a weapon. Someone else admitted they'd checked the lobby cams too often. Emily wrote, "We're not a room aware," a release on the board. It stayed, after Adrian waited until the room thinned. "I'm recusing from your promotion ladder formally," he said, holding out another signed memo. "Mara will own it. I'll stay the hell out of the way." She read, eyes flicking across the specifics, then back up. "Thank you. I won't ask for anything from you," he said, plain. If you want distance, I'll keep it. If you want to talk about work, I'll be in rooms where titles don't warp sentences. She studied him, weighing whether this was performance or choice. I want to build this platform, she said. I want a workplace where truth doesn't have to sneak. I want to sleep. You'll get the first two, he said. I can help with a third by not texting after 10. Her mouth tugged, despite herself. 9, done, he said. They stood there, boundary and breath between them. He didn't reach. She didn't ask. Something steadier than adrenaline took the space performance used to eat. Coffee, she said finally. Not a date, not a test, just an ordinary word offered on neutral ground. On a sidewalk, daylight, no cameras that matter. He asked when this ships to production, she said. Earn it, he nodded. Like being given a goal by someone who didn't owe him one was the first privilege he'd respected in a while. Deal. By 6 o'clock, the building exhaled into evening. Emily wiped the board clean, left the faint ghost lines to remind tomorrow what today had done. Adrian took the long hall, the one without the lobby, lens, and stepped into air that felt less performative. At the Midtown rental, the brick wall mural had gained color. The door was finished, a simple rectangle filled in. He stood there a long time, feeling ridiculous and right. He texted Rog, "We're through the worst. Rog, you say that every time. One day you'll be right. Adrian, today's close. Rog, go outside, touch grass, or at least asphalt. Adrian grinned and, for once, obeyed. 6 months later, boring had become a compliment. The platform shipped to production in phases that looked like stairsteps, not fireworks. Support complaints dropped. Sales stopped promising a future tense feature and started demoing the present. Procurement turned into a process people trusted. The blog published fewer memos and more changelogs. Granger's lawsuit died in discovery. The contractor now worked 2 rows from car, converted quietly to FTE. Sophia's brand pivoted to philanthropy and design. The algorithm rewarded her grace. Adrian and she were 2 people with a shared past and separate press teams. It was enough. Adrian kept walking floors with his real name on his chest and no entourage. He learned to ask one more question and say one fewer clever thing. He wrote fewer speeches. He taped 1 page inside his cabinet and didn't change it. Fund the work where it lives. Pull power out of performance. Keep distance. Keep truth. Emily's team grew by 3 and learned to hire for calm. She bought a better notebook and the same cheap pen. She said again, less often and good more. People copied her phrasing because it made them brave. On a Thursday in late spring, they cut over a final service with no fanfare. A password reset flow so smooth the Boise agent joked she missed the swearing. Emily laughed and let herself, just once. Put beautiful next to boring without irony. At lunch, she texted Adrian a single word. Ship, he replied with a street corner. They met at a stand-up coffee window 2 blocks from the office. No security bubble. No curated light. She wore the navy blazer because it felt like a flag. He wore a grey sweater that took the edge off his edges. Congratulations, he said. You, too, she said, then nodded at the cup in his hand. You're not allowed to bring gifts above $4. It was $3.75, he said, plus tax. She smirked. They stood shoulder to shoulder. Not facing each other easier to talk when the city moves in front of you. I kept the distance, he said after a beat. Like I said, I know, she said. I also saw you fund the unglamorous parts without a press release. That was the point, he said. They watched a delivery. Bike thread traffic like a sentence finding its verb. I'm not asking for a story, he said finally. I'm asking if you want a walk that ends nowhere particular. We can talk about anything that isn't a headline. She thought about the woman she'd been a year ago, counting optics, guarding exits, mistaking performance for safety. Then she thought about the last 6 months, receipts, releases, uncelebrated fixes. A man who learned how to be present without being a show. Yes, she said, simple as a commit, a walk. No cameras that matter. They crossed at the light. The city didn't notice. That was the point. They talked about mobile perf and a deli that still sliced pastrami right, and whether courage was more like a muscle or a habit. He didn't reach for her hand. She didn't make him confess another thing he wasn't ready to. Somewhere around Block 5, she said. 9 p.m. curfew on texts still stands. 8:59, he said. Now you're learning, she said, and smiled. They passed a brick wall with a painted door. He didn't point. She didn't ask. Some symbols you don't ruin by Naya RRATING. Later weeks. Then months they would try more walks, then a movie, then dinners where the conversation wandered and the silences didn't itch. They would keep the recusal in place as long as it took. They would prove with time what they refused to rush with speeches, that love built like products peck by speck. Test by test, boring and beautiful was the only kind either of them could live with now. For today, the afternoon held. The company worked. The city kept its weather. Two people who'd learned to separate masks from boundaries turned a corner together, not as a headline, not as a secret, but as something better, a choice made in daylight and kept in small, ordinary steps, cut over complete,